Hello and welcome to this video on how to upload SVG files into Silhouette Studio. This video covers the two different ways you can upload files into Silhouette Studio depending on which version of the software you have. If you have the free version of Silhouette Studio, also called the Basic Edition or Standard Edition, that does unfortunately mean that you can't upload SVG files directly. You need to upload files called DXF files instead. Don't worry, it's easy to do and I'll show you how. However, if you have any of the paid versions of Silhouette Studio from Designer Edition all the way up to Business, then you can upload the SVG files directly. I'll talk a little bit more about the differences between these two types of files in this video and show you how to upload both of them so that you can start crafting with your Silhouette machine straight away. If you're watching this and you have a Cricut machine or a scan and cut machine instead, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, select your type of machine on the screen, and then there'll be a separate version of this same video that uses your particular type of machine software. But if you're using a Silhouette machine and Silhouette Studio software, you're in the right place right now. Let's get started. First things first, you'll need to choose an SVG that you want to make and download it from wherever it is that you found it. If you're using a Craft with Sarah SVG file, these will download as a zip folder. A zip folder is an easy way for me to give you multiple different files all contained in one easy download link. You'll need to unzip this folder before you can upload the SVG. On a Windows computer, find the zip folder. It will probably be in your Downloads folder. Right-click on it and press Extract All. Choose somewhere to save it and then press Extract. You can see I've now got a copy of that folder, only this time it doesn't end in .zip in that file name and it doesn't have the zip down the picture. That shows that this is the unzipped version. If you're using a Mac, you can just double click on the zip folder to unzip it. If you're using a mobile device such as a phone or tablet, whether that's on iOS or Android, head to craftwithsarah.com/unzip for a separate video on how to unzip on your particular device. Let's take a little look in the folder. If you're using one of my newer SVGs or one of the older designs that I have refactored, you'll see a lot of folders in here, all with a different number at the start. My team and I have been working really hard over the last few months to reformat all of our older designs so that they are easier to make in a wider range of cutting machine softwares, as well as for laser machines, sublimation printers, printing with just a regular colour printer, and even cutting by hand. You'll know if you're looking at one of those reformatted designs because you'll see all of these folders with all these numbers. Don't worry, I'll show you exactly which one you'll need for your machine. If you're using a Craft with Sarah design and you've unzipped it and you don't see all of those folders with the numbers on, don't worry, that just means you're using an older design that we haven't got around to reformatting yet. We're hoping to get them all done by the end of this year, but it is taking a lot longer than we thought it was going to, but we'll get there. If you are using one of those older designs, you'll probably find that after you've unzipped the folder, it looks more like this instead. Rather than all of those other folders inside, there are just a few separate files. If you're looking for the SVG file, that will be the one that starts SVG in the file name. If you're looking for the DXF for the free version of Silhouette Studio, that's the one that starts DXF. Next, let's open up our cutting machine software to get the files uploaded. After unzipping the folders, open up Silhouette Studio. First, I'll show how to add SVGs onto your project if you're using the Designer Edition or higher, and that's any of the paid versions of Silhouette Studio. Then, for the second part of this video, I'll show how to upload files if you're using the free version of Silhouette Studio. However, I will say that it is much more difficult and time-consuming to work with files on the free version of Silhouette Studio. If you're going to be making lots of paper crafts with your Silhouette or uploading lots of files, then I strongly recommend upgrading to at least the Designer Edition, as it will make your crafting experience so much easier. You can upgrade for around $40, sometimes it's a little bit more or less, and that's a one-off payment. It's not a monthly or yearly subscription, so the Silhouette Studio software is actually really affordable to upgrade to. Alright, so this here is the Designer Edition. To open up the SVG, we're going to go to File on the top left and then Open. find the unzipped version of the download folder on your computer. You can see here I've got all of these different folders. These are all different for various types of cutting machine or other types of craft machine, or if you're hand cutting or printing. If you're using your Silhouette and you do have the Designer Edition or higher, then the version that will be easiest for you to work with is the 02 layers stacked version. If you want to, you can delete all of the others and just keep the 02 layers stacked. So I'll go into there, and then the one to choose is the file that starts SVG in the file name. Again, you can delete the other ones if you don't want to keep them on your computer taking up space. So the one that you're keeping for Silhouette Studio, if you're using the Designer Edition or higher, is SVG-02, and then the rest of the file name. So they'll all start SVG-02. Double click to open, and this is how it comes in. You'll find that the Silhouette mat automatically sizes itself to the design like this on my newer formatted designs. You can put that back by clicking into the page setup menu, which is this top one over on the right, clicking that to open the window, and then under media size, change it to whatever size card you're cutting out at. I tend to use A4 card. So that's how you open SVG files in Silhouette Studio. If I click on this, although it looks like a completed picture, if I go to the Layers panel down here and then click the plus, you can see it does have all of these pieces in it, all separate. Before you cut this out, you would have to separate it into the individual colours to get it all ready. I show how to do that in a separate video. That other video is on how to take a layered SVG like this fairy door and go through the whole cut process, from sizing it in Silhouette Studio to separating out the layers to loading the cardstock into your cutting machine, getting all the different colours done, and then how to stick it all together at the end. To find that video, head to craftwithsarah.com/help and then look for the video on how to make layered cardstock projects with a Silhouette machine. That page also has lots of other useful Silhouette tutorials, including topics such as how to recolor SVGs, how to remove layers or patterns to make them a little bit simpler to cut out, how to make greetings cards, and how to perfectly frame your layered paper crafts so that they fit in your shadow box perfectly. I'll be adding more videos to that page throughout the year too. Alright, so that was how to load SVG files in the Designer Edition, and it will work the same for Designer Plus or Business, but what about if you're using the free version of Silhouette Studio? Okay, actually before we get on to the free version, I also want to show you what to look for if you're using one of my older cut file designs where I haven't reformatted it yet to add in all of those different folder structures. So we'll go File and then Open once more. And then this time I'll select a different design. This is the seahorse design available in my shop or the Craft with Sarah membership. If you're unzipping the design and loading it and you don't have all of those folders with the numbers that we just saw with the fairy door, then that means that this is one of the older designs that hasn't been redone yet. If that's the case, you're looking for the file that starts SVG in the file name. It might be all in capital letters or it might be lowercase, but as long as you select the one that starts SVG, that's the right one to use for any of the paid versions of Silhouette Studio. Open that one and here it is. This time you'll probably find that the map will stay at A4 size, but if you want to change it, of course you can by clicking on the page setup and then going into whatever you want, for example 12 by 12. All right, now we're going to take a look at the free version of Silhouette Studio. I've now switched over to the free version of Silhouette Studio. Watch what happens now if I try to open an SVG file. So I'll do exactly the same thing. Go File and then Open. And then I'll use the fairy door example. Go into the 02 layer stacked. And now if I choose the SVG, which is the one that starts SVG in the file name, I'm going to get an error message that says the file type you are attempting to access is not supported. That's because the free version of Silhouette Studio does not let you open SVG files. So you need to choose one of the other file formats instead. The best one to choose is the one that starts DXF in the file name. This is another cut file format, so I'll select that one this time and press OK. However, You probably won't want to use the 02 layer stacked version of the DXF file, and I'll show you why. If we open this, you see when you load in a DXF file, it removes all of the colors, so you only see everything as an outline, and it also doesn't join any of the bits together into the layers that is how we need it. So if you try and move things apart, every tiny little part of every layer comes apart, such as all these little cut lines in the door. It would be really, really difficult to work with a file like this. So I'm going to close this one and select a different version instead. We'll go File, Open, and then this time, instead of the 02 layers stacked, you'd want to select either the 03 layers separated in order or 04 layers separated by colour. I find the colour one easier to work with, so I'll go into that one, and remember we can't load the SVG in the free version of Silhouette Studio, so we're going to choose the one that starts DXF and press OK. This has still loaded everything in black and white, but this time all of the pieces are separate on the screen. So although it's still doing the thing where it's letting us move all the bits within a cut, it'll be easier to figure out because it's all separated. When working with DXF files, you'll need to join all the pieces together to prevent it doing things like this. So let's undo that just to put that back into position. What you'll need to do is look at all of the shapes that have cutouts in the middle of them and do what's called compound pathing. That joins all the pieces together, which then means you won't be able to move them apart one at a time like that anymore. After doing that, we'll then add in all of the colours. We'll zoom in with the arrows along the top, and then the first one to do will be this door. I don't need to do this door or the flowers because there's no little cutouts inside any of these outlines, but this door, it's got the heart in the middle, so I need to join that together. Drag a box to select both those, but only select those two pieces, nothing else. So I haven't selected these flowers or any other bits, just the heart and the outline around it. In the menu on the right, click into the Modify panel, which is the one that looks like the rectangle and the circle. With those layers still selected, under Compound Paths, press Make. Now I can't drag that heart away from the outline anymore, it's all joined together. That's what we want. I need to do the same for these flowers. So I'll start with the top one, drag a box around the little circle in the middle and the bit around the edge, and then under Compound Paths, press Make. And then the same for the bottom one. And then also for this one. Before I do it for this one, as this has got lots of cutouts in the middle, it would be a good example to show you why I'm doing this. If I was to drag a box around all of this and try and give it a colour so that I know which colour cardstock to cut it out at the moment, because all these individual little bits in the middle are separate, if I give it a fill colour, it's going to fill everything in and then I can't see all those cut lines. However, if I undo that, drag a box around it all, and then compound path it first, press Make. Now it's all joined together. You see now I can't move those little bits individually. If I was to click on this now and give it a fill colour, that's exactly what we want. We want it to still show all of these bits as cutouts in the middle. We'll get to the colouring at the end. I just wanted to kind of try and explain a little bit more about why we're doing this. Remember, you only have to do this if you're using the free version of Silhouette Studio with the DXF files. This is why I recommend upgrading. You can go to just the next level up, which is the Designer Edition, and then you won't have to do this every time you open a cut file. You can just load the SVGs and they just work. Okay, let's do this one. There we go. And then the little door handle here. That one doesn't need doing because there's no cutouts in the middle of it. Alright, so now that I've compound pathed all of those shapes, we can start adding the colours. The reason why I selected each one individually and didn't just go like this and then compound path the whole thing is that that would then join everything together, so it would just cut out of one sheet of the same colour card, which we definitely don't want. That's why it's important to go through everything one at a time, even though it does take a little bit longer. Because I used the separated by colour version of the file, I know that all these little groups of images show layers that will be the same colour. If you want to make this exactly the same colour as the one you see on my website, then you can do that by going File and then Open. And then within that 04 Layer Separated by Colour folder, there's a file in there called Colour Codes. Open that and it will open a version here with all of the colours on it. The reason we can't use the PNG to cut is that, okay, technically you could, but you'd need to convert it into a cut file because this only comes in as one single layer. So you'd need to separate everything out and then convert it. And you're not going to get as good an effect. It will be a little bit more raggedy on the edges, a little bit less precise as the DXF version. So that's why we're doing the DXF, not the PNG. All right, so I'm going to click on this, then right click and copy, go on over to my DXF, right click and paste. Zoom out a little bit, move this over to the side, and then drag a box around the ones over here that match the ones here that are all in one colour. With these 3 bits selected, which matches the 3 bits over here, go into the colour palette icon and then click the colour picker tool. And then click that colour and all of these bits will change to match. Then go through all of them, changing the colours to match that colour guides file. Of course, if you prefer, you can use whatever colours you want. You don't have to use the colours from the original. You've got all these colours to choose from, or you can click and drag to select whatever you want from there. That's all of those. Now I don't need this colour guides version anymore, so we'll click that and then right click and delete, or you can press the delete key on your keyboard. And now, after all of that, we're finally at a stage where this would be ready to resize and then get cut out with the Silhouette machine. Again, there's a separate video on how to do that available at craftswithsarah.com/help. Choose Silhouette as the option and then look for the video on how to make layered cardstock projects with a Silhouette. Just before we finish, let's take a look at the seahorse design too, so that you can see which files to select if you're using one of my older designs that hasn't been reformatted yet and you're in the free version of Silhouette Studio. I'll go File and Open. Find that seahorse folder, my unzipped version of the folder. So if you're looking at this and you're using the free version of Silhouette Studio, again, you want to use the one called DXF. You've only got one option to choose from this time, and it will have all of the pieces separate on the screen, but they'll be in layer order this time rather than grouped by colour. So there we go, that's all the pieces in the order that you would stick them together. So you'd still need to go through and compound path everything. On this one, you'd do this one with the eye in the middle, this one because it's got all these bits down the tail and the eye holes, and then obviously the flowery one. And then you'd need to add the colours in. My older designs, such as this one, don't have a colour guides file, but they do have a PNG version of this design. So you could go File, Open the file that starts PNG in the file name, and then copy and paste that, and then use that to get the colours once you've done all the compound paths. As I said, I am working through all of the older files to put them into the new format. Part of the reason for doing that is to make it easier for the files to be used in Silhouette Studio if you're using the free version, because the splitting it by colour does make it a lot quicker than doing everything in order, especially if you're on a design that's got lots and lots of layers. Some of my SVGs have upwards of 20 layers, and doing it all one at a time is a bit more time consuming than just being able to grab everything in the same colour. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to upload SVG and DXF files into Silhouette Studio. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for lots more silhouette tips and tricks. You can find other videos in this series at craftwithsarah.com/help and then select the silhouette option on the screen. Or to get started with some cardstock crafting straight away, head to craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs for over 100 different designs to choose from. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!